Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we're going to do our second flight in the TFDI MD-11. This one is going to be a special one as we're going to fly it as realistic as possible on a route that I've actually flown a couple hundred times in the real world already. We're standing at Cologne airport and we're going to take it over on the real life UPS 4 towards London Stansted, a flight that used to be operated on the MD-11 before they changed it over to the 747-8 when they withdrew all their 11s from Europe. So, let's head straight over into the cockpit of our 11, and over here we are going to start. Now, the first thing we're going to do is the first officer's cockpit preparation procedure, so let's just head over on to the right-hand seat over here. So, logbooks checked, circuit breakers are checked, they are all in. Emergency equipment is checked, weather radar verified off, fuel switches are off, parking brake set, spoiler and flap handles retracted and up retracted, gear handle down, fuel dump and manifold drain switches are guarded, emergency power selector off, battery switch on. So let's establish electrical power, and we are going to use the APU for that, so we'll run the engine APU fire test, and now we can press the APU starter. Right, APU is slowly starting up, so in the meantime we can go ahead and do our loading. So we are going to take just maximum cargo over here, which is limited 91,962. A fuel quantity is going to be 40,000 pounds for our flight. Right, payload is set, very good. And in the meantime the APU is started, so we can add APU power to our airplane. Alright, with the APU now powering the plane, let's run the engine APU fire test again, because now with AC power it is capable of doing the full test.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 3 fire.
Alright, that's the test completed. Let's go ahead and do the annunciator light test, making sure that all the bulbs are working, and that is looking good. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do over here, it's outside of the procedure, but I'm just going to take all the panels, put them into manual, and then back into automatic. Because I do have a feeling that with the present first version of the MD-11 Collector's Edition, the systems need that little reset there in order to start working correctly. But that's done now, so let's go ahead with our system setups. We're going to start on the top and then we're going to go down to the bottom. So, turning on the IRS automatically runs the cargo fire test, and you can see we're getting the indications down here. Okay, and with the IRS initialized, let's go to the FMC2, flight plan init from Cologne to Echo Golf Shitty Stansted. Here we are, and initialize the IRS. Perfect. Okay, very good. So, at that point, we are basically done with the first 10 items of the setup, and we could go over to the captain setup and do his, but I'm just quickly going to continue in here. Now, what I'll do, I'm gonna turn all those lights on because it's rather cloudy outside and that makes the entire cockpit look a little dark, so I'll just turn all of these on for now. Okay, cool. And the moment I say it, it stops raining, but tell you what, I'll turn the floodlights off, but I'm gonna keep the backlights on. It gives the plane a little nice atmosphere here. Alright then, so let's continue with our setups. Generator bus fault reset lights are off. Cargo temperature, we're going to keep it in low as we don't need any particular cargo today. Engine ignition is off. Then moving back up to the hydraulic panel, let's run the hydraulic system pressure test. And we can have a look at that on the synoptic display. We can see hydraulic pressure test in progress. Okay, that's going to run automatically. We'll move on to the next system, where we've got the smoke elec air switch in the norm position. The emergency power is going to go arm. This should carry out a test over here, which is however currently not simulated. Okay, going down to the air panel. Pretty much nothing we need to do over here, similar for the fuel panel. leading us down to the lights. Emergency lights can be on, no smoking on, fasten belts on, nav lights on, and I'm just going to turn the logo lights on just in case it starts raining and it's getting a little darker again. Alright, moving on to the third column over here. The evacuation panel test, unfortunately, we can't do. GPWS looks good. And then we move further down. Flap limit auto, elevator feel auto. Cabin pressure, just gonna put it in manual and back in auto. NTS looking good. Fuel used reset. And that's it. Alright, on the side panel, all that stuff is on. Electronic instrument source set at 2, static air norm. Unfortunately, we can't do the oxygen mask test in here because that's currently not simulated. Leading us down to our glass shield, we are going to use hectopascal, traffic, data, airport, VOR1, VOR2. And finally, let's just adjust that altimeter. 997 is the current QNH. The FGCP we'll do later on. Right then, leading us down on here. And then we can set our guard frequency 1 to 1.5 on the radio, like that. And here we go. Microphone active, going down, trims are both at 0. And with that, we're done on the FO side. Now we can move over to the captain side. Similarly, over here, hectopascals, traffic, data, VOR1 and 2. The airport button unfortunately doesn't work yet, but remember, first beta. Okay then, from here we are going to move down. I'll just hit that anti-skid button because it does seem to help getting that message read later on. 1228 is tuned already, and we'll keep the transponder where it is. And that's it. Alright, on the left side again, static air, everything on, and EIS source 1. Alright, then we can move on with the FMS setup. So, MD-11F, CF6 engines, operating program is checked, and database is current. Flight plan init then. Alternate is going to be in Manchester today. Flight number is UPS 4. Cruising level 320. It's a rather short flight, and the cost index is going to be 50. Okay, then on to the flight plan itself. Sit 1 for left, Nervenich to Papa departure. Here it is. Insert. Then, from Nervenich, we're going to join the airways with Yankee 868 Sokri, Lima 608 Summum, and the last one would be Yankee 6 towards Tosva, but that's just a single waypoint, so I'm just going to enter it manually over here. So after Summum we go towards Tosba, like that. Now let's remove the discontinuities down here. That's one gone. And down here for the arrival, I'm going to select an ILS approach runway 22, Abbott transition, and Tosva 1 Alpha arrival. Here we go. Okay, insert that. So let's have a quick look through the plan. See what we're up to, and just scroll through everything down here, make sure that it matches what we have just about entered. Alright, I don't like that. We're gonna get rid of the holding, and that Barkway 20 point is just incorrectly located there. That shouldn't be all the way on the other side. There's something wrong there in that database, so let's just go ahead and remove that stuff manually. Alright. That basically looks good, and we're going to keep it like this. Perfect, then secondary flight plan, copy active, init, next page. So, block fuel is going to be 40,000 pounds. Let's see, takeoff gross weight, 275.3. So that's 275.3 in here. Zero fuel weight looking good. And then current CG 24.6, zero fuel CG 25.1. So 25.1 zero fuel and 24.6 is the current one. Very good, leading us to the takeoff and approach page. We're going to use 55 degrees flex temperature, packs on, slope and wind are both going to be 0. Temperature, we've got 8 degrees centigrade, so that's going to be 8C. Acceleration in 1500, and it's going to be a flaps 10 takeoff, and that gives us takeoff speeds over here. But before we accept them, let's just go thrust limit. We'll take the D-rate takeoff 2 and climb 2 as well. Okay, return over here, check confirm V-speeds, V1 126, that looks good. V rotate 126, also looks good. V2 160, also looks good. And that is accepted. Finally, we go to the performance page, and for the climb, I'm going to select an initial climb speed here of 220. I'll tell you what, we might as well just go econ, and that's gonna be it. Transition altitude 5000 checked as well, so with that, our FMS is pretty much done. Okay, leads us over to the flight guidance control panel, where I'll put 250 knots in straight away. Then heading onto the runway heading, that's going to be 136, and the altitude is going to be 5000. So here we go, 136 and 5000. Nav arm, profile arm, and that looks good to me. Very nice. Okay, still waiting for the IRS to finish alignment. Normally we should see the times up here, but looks like that's not implemented in the version in which I'm filming this. Keep in mind this is still pretty much the first beta that we had. Okay then, let's check the remaining pages. We've got engine oil pressure low, that's expected. Hydraulic we checked. Electric is looking good, fed by the APU. Air looking as expected as well. Config also good. So we still have that fuel page in the middle. That's looking fine. And finally, status page. Everything down here is noted and expected except that anti-skid off. Sometimes we just need to press that button once more, and here we go, now it's gone. Okay, cool. So with that, we are pretty much fully prepared. So I suppose we are going to start our briefing, and while we do that, we can already call GSX to start preparing us for the pushback and startup. Right, we'll take VSAC as operator. Then at least all our delays are already explained and nobody's gonna ask a question anymore. Okay, looks good to me. Let's go ahead with the cockpit preparation checklist. SD status page, checked. Hydraulic panel, auto. Fuel panel, auto. Exterior lights, set. Evac command, armed. Oxygen system and mast, checked 100%. Takeoff warning system. Well, that one, I tried to check a few times, and every time it froze my simulator, so I'm not going to touch the takeoff config warning system here. Okay, fuel switches off. Rudder and aileron trims checked. FMS checked set. Flap takeoff selector 10. FCP set. IRS not ready yet. Still says no taxi. Okay, so we gotta wait for that, and the auto brake is on takeoff, so we just gotta wait for the IRS alignment to finish. Well, in the meantime, let's go ahead and do our takeoff briefing. So, threats for the departure. Well, to be honest, I don't really see any on this one. Route check is looking good. Let's just have a look into the progress page down here. Do we have total distance anywhere? No, we don't. Okay, that's unfortunate. That's what I would have liked to check, but that's fine. Okay, so it's going to be a left seat takeoff on runway 14 left, flaps 10, noise abatement procedure 2, accelerating in 1500 feet. And thank you, GSX, just stand by. Accelerating in 1500 feet. In case of emergencies, we go straight at 6 miles, left turn to Wipper, climbing 4000, which keeps us safe above the MSA of 3800. The emergencies we discussed in the crew bus on the way to the airplane, and for the taxi it's going to be pushback to the right hand side and then straight ahead via Alpha to the end, Alpha 7 for runway 14 left full length. The SID Nervenich to Papa departure is fairly straightforward. We've got that in here, and it's straight at 700 feet, Delta Kilo 132, Delta Kilo 146, 137 and Nervenich. And initial climb is 5000, which we've got selected up here. Any questions? No? Okay, let's continue the cockpit preparation checklist. That's IRS, taxi, And auto brake, takeoff, cockpit preparation checklist complete. Okay. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead then with our before start procedure. The doors are actually closed already. Then here we go. Hydraulic pump 1. Aux pump 1 coming on. Park and brake is set. Ground clearance received. Pushback is received as well, so beacon light can go on. Engine ignition, we're going to use B today. Fuel control panel, auto. Air control panel, auto. Then we can do the before start checklist. Okay, doors, windows closed, park brake set, beacon on, engine ignition B, fuel panel auto, air panel auto, and that's the before start checklist complete. Okay then, continue pushback, and it's going to be facing, what's that, to the left please, facing, well, north and south, they're funny, yeah, facing north on Alpha, has to be. Alright, cool. So we're pretty much ready to go. Quick look outside on what GSX is doing down here. We're using the profile available from TFDI, so that is looking quite good. Okay, I'd say we are ready to go. So, park and brake is released. So, are we eventually going to start moving? Here we go. Very good. Okay then, start sequence is going to be 3, 1, 2. So, ground cockpit. Yeah, go ahead please. Okay, we are ready for engine start in the sequence 3, 1, and 2. Okay, starting engine number 3. And 2. %, fuel on. N1, oil pressure. Okay, takeoff page left, flight plan page right. Okay, good start on 3, starting 1. That's N2. N1. 15%, fuel coming on. Okay, pushback complete. Park and brake set. You're clear to lower the aircraft. Remove pushback equipment and advise when clear, please. Stand by for engine starts. Okay, good start on 1, starting 2. Master caution, engine 2 oil pressure low, that's checked. Okay, 3 good starts, clear disconnect, clear turn left, and with a pin. And down here he is, holding a pin, and he's going. Very good. Cool, after start procedure. Now, it's not raining at the moment, but look at that, there's rain showers in the area already, so we'll take the engine anti-ice on today. Provided that it is going to come on eventually. Is it? We need to reset the air system for that. Okay, not sure why. It looks like anti-ice isn't working over here. Then, APU panel. Shutting down. Hydraulic control panel. We can put that aux pump off. The rest of the system remains automatic. Okay, ground equipment is clear. Cabin report is received. And then we can do the after start checklist. Okay, anti-ice off. Air panel auto. APU off. Hydraulic panel auto. Ground equipment gear pins removed. Cabin report received. After start checklist complete. Okay, clear left side, clear right side, and off we go. Taxi light on, turn off lights on, brakes off, and taxi. I find it interesting, looking into the AFCOM that I have available, we actually start the taxi first, and only then during taxi we are going to set the slats and flaps for takeoff. But if that's how they want us to do it, then that's how we are going to do it. Right, so slats 10, spoilers armed. Then we can go ahead with the flight control track. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and I am not going to touch the rudder. Okay then, let's set our trim. Looking at 4.9 units of stabilizer trim down there. Here it is. And 4.9 units is set. Takeoff config check is green. Then let's do the takeoff review. Left seat takeoff, runway 1 for left, flaps 10, noise abatement procedure number 2. Takeoff speeds 28, 160. And the sit straight out, Delta Kilo 132, right hand turn. 170 outbound Lima Juliet Lima Victor until we're at 12.5 kbo, then a right turn on 299 Immer to Nurbanich, climbing initially 5,000 feet. Contact departure when passing 2,000, and in case of emergency, straight at 6 miles, and then it's going to be a left-hand turn back inbound to the station. Okay, so that's that part. Then let's continue with the taxi checklist. Flaps. Flaps 10, spoilers, armed, flight controls checked, step trim is at 4.9 and set. And takeoff data is confirmed and set. Taxi checklist complete. So, 10 knots of ground speed around the corner. Alright, takeoff clearance is received. EAD looking good. Cabin is ready. Then let's turn on the lights. Like that. Weather radar and transponder. Well, mostly transponder is the interesting part over here. Of course, the weather radar doesn't seem to be implemented quite yet. Right, hydraulics looking good. Packs are staying on. And with that we can start the B4 takeoff checklist. Okay, EAD checked, high intensity landing lights on, hydraulic panel auto, air panel auto, weather radar transponder on, B4 takeoff checklist complete. So, ready to go. Takeoff. Auto flight. Thrust set. 80 knots. Takeoff clamp. V1 rotate. Oh, what's that? Nose doesn't want to come up. Here we go. Okay, had to force that one into the air. Positive climb. Gear up. So I'm applying quite a bit of aft elevator trim right now. You can somewhat see it in the edge over there. But here we go. That is looking okay. Alright, perfect. Acceleration altitude. Flaps retract. Warning, connection lost. Well, thank you, Microsoft. And slats retract. Alright, a little bit of hand flying over here, because I want to feel how that plane feels before we are eventually going to turn on the autopilot. So, starting right hand turn. I need a lot, and I mean a lot of elevator input over here. Oh, sorry, of aileron input over here in order to have that airplane moving in the turn. Not entirely sure that is correct, but I'm sure that a lot of you are eventually going to compare this with some of the cockpit videos out there, and are going to come to a conclusion as to how realistic that is. Okay. So 250 knots. Flight director is a little bit pitching up and down, but I suppose we can live with that. So, at this point we've got a climb clearance to flight altitude 200, and once out of level 80 we are going to get a direct to Navak. That's what you normally get from air traffic control on a departure like this. Okay, so gear is up so we can disarm those spoilers, auto brakes off, and then we can do the after takeoff checklist. Successfully connected, I like to see that. Okay, after takeoff checklist. Landing gear, up, lights out, air panel, auto, spoiler handle, disarmed, auto brake, off, flaps and slats, up, retracted, hydraulic panel, auto, fuel panel, auto, EAD, checked, seat belts, remain on for now, external lights are also going to remain on, and altimeters, set standard please. Okay, standard cross-check passing 8.6 now. Alright, we're through level 80, that means we can now do direct to Navak. That's what ATC usually clears you to. Yep, that was a little simulator hangar over there. But here we are again. Okay, acceleration altitude. We'll just update the direct to Navak once more. Here we go, that looks better. And then we can start accelerating. By the way, for me personally, this is a typical hand flying profile on a departure like this. I usually fly it manually until after the acceleration at 100. That is like what I like to do the most on flights like this. Okay, let's do it like that. Update the direct once more. Okay, Navak confirmed. And now we're on the route. Perfect. Accelerating nicely. Once we're done with the acceleration, we're going to run the flight level 100 items. And then we're eventually going to take on the autopilot as well. Okay, here we are with the speed. The plane is stable. Autoflight. Some minimal input here to correct the speed, but apart from that, everything's looking good. So that's pretty much what we want to see. Okay, passing 100, we are going to turn off the lights over here. Also don't need that logo light anymore. Well, seatbelts, doesn't really matter, we'll just put them into auto. And let's see, can we put the anti-ice on now? No. Let's just check, is there anything we need to be aware of here? Like wing, tail, windshield, that's working. But the rest of the anti-ice seems to be inoperative at the moment. Okay, well, in that case, just gonna turn that stuff off over here. And we'll just let it slide like that. The good thing, however, is, even though we cannot turn the anti-ice on manually, I did observe on an earlier flight that in case the airplane senses that we're flying through icing conditions, it is still going to turn it on automatically. So that's quite cool. See, here you got it. Anti-ice all on. It sensed that we had a little bit of ice attaching to our airplane as we flew through the cloud, and then it turned the anti-ice on automatically. So that's quite cool to see that it's doing that. Here, you can see it in action once again. See that? Now it's automatically turning it off again. Well, it's doing its job. Okay, at some point over here around level 160 they would usually transfer us to Brussels 12485 if I'm not mistaken, or 12845, that way around, who usually clears to climb flight level 240. So that's what we'll do. And they would either start coordinating with Maastricht for an update, usually direct Kaget or DNUT, sometimes even a Susky. But more often than not, we would get that direct when we are finally talking to Maastricht radar. For that reason, let's just stay in course towards Navak right now. The general direction is fairly okay. Alright, let's have a look how that looks like from the outside. That MD-11 really is a good looking airplane, isn't it? I really like it, I really do. That's a nice perspective, man. See that from the front? I like those wings. That angle they have over here. It's a really sharp angle. And that is ultimately the reason why this airplane has such a high approach speed in the end. I mean, it doesn't quite get there to the 747, but it's quite cool indeed. Okay, so passing level 200. More often than not, we'd already get a handoff to Maastricht at this point, so saying hello to Maastricht, they will ask us where we want to climb, how high, and let's be honest here, on a short flight like this, our top of descent is just over there, prior to Kaget already, and we'll have to cross Kaget at flight level 280, that's the restriction ATC always gives us, so flight level 320 is going to give us like 80 miles on the cruise, and there's honestly not a lot of sense to climb to higher levels, so let's take flight level 320 as planned. Here we go. That's 320 set. And then Maastricht, usually when passing flight level 250, they are going to clear us direct to probably DNUT or Kaget, one of these. Sometimes they even coordinate with London to give you a direct towards Tosva or even to Idisi. We'll have to see about that. Today we're most likely going to start direct to DNUT. So yeah, passing 220 is fine. Often Brussels would actually release you for turns when they hand you over to Maastricht, so if that is the case, then they can clear us direct straight away. So direct DNAT looks like a good start to me, 104 miles, flying straight, and then later on I am fairly sure we're going to get another direct. But we'll have to see about it. So, not a lot to be seen outside right now. Smoking on, anti-ice has been turned on automatically down there, as you can see. And then we should hopefully get out of the clouds in a few moments. Okay, at that point we would normally go ahead and either eat our breakfast or dinner, depending if it's the morning flight or the evening flight we are doing, because once we reach our cruising altitude, we are already getting quite short of the top of descent. So it is a short flight, you gotta manage your time. Also at this moment the pilot monitoring would probably start working on the flight plan and the flight's documentation already, so that that stuff is done by the time the pilot flying is ready to start the approach briefing. So time management is quite critical on a flight like that. You can see our top of descent is currently like 120 miles out over there already. And then of course you're flying through some of the busiest airspace in the world over here. Maastricht, and then later on London is, well, London especially, it's about the busiest you're going to find anywhere, and you really want to have all your stuff done by the time you start your descent, so that you can listen to what air traffic control is saying, and that they don't have to call you several times. They get rather unhappy rather quickly when that happens. Another little word here, you can see we're still climbing with the climb 2 limit, but look at that, we're doing 2,000 feet a minute with that, so I don't see any reason to take out that climb D rate. If we took it out, the EGT would rise, and that is going to increase the engine wear, and we want to avoid that happening, so we are going to leave that climb D rate in. Even though it is going to restrict our rate of climb a little bit, if it's beneficial for the airline in terms of money they're going to save, then that is exactly what we are going to do. Okay, we made it on top of the clouds. Let's see that from the outside once more. It's nice to see, it's really nice to see that MD-11. It's an airplane that I really didn't think I would be flying ever again after I stopped flying it back in FSX, and when PMDG announced they wouldn't make it compatible with P3D or later on Microsoft Flight Simulator. At that point it was really a pity, because the 11 is such a nice airplane. On the other hand side though, I can totally understand that for many flight simmers it is not that interesting of a plane, because flight simmers like to fly what they see in the real world. And how many of you still actively see MD-11s out there? Honestly, not a lot, and for that reason flight simmers are not that much into the airplane. I mean, obviously every one of you is going to say in the comments now that no, we love the 11, and I totally understand that. However, it is unfortunately a matter of fact that 777, for example, is just a lot more popular than the 11, which is a pity because I really like the plane. I've got 1,000 to go, by the way, so let's go vertical speed plus 1,000, please. Here we go. But unfortunately, it is, well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'm very happy that TFDI decided to go for the MD-11, because in my opinion it is a magnificent airplane, and TFDI did a superb job with the 717 back in P3D. I was really happy with it, and now looking at the first version of the MD-11 that we're seeing over here, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. To be honest, yes, it still has a lot of bugs in the first version that we're flying right now, but if we are totally fair about it, then yeah, it does have those bugs. But on the other hand side, I have been beta testing flight simulation add-ons for the past 10 years and a little bit longer. And in that time, I really flew a lot of first betas, and many of them were far worse than the MD-11 is right now. The MD-11 is in a shape where you can do an entire flight from A to B with it, and it gets you where you want to go. And that is not something that typical first betas would do. So typically first betas would end your flight a little bit earlier than you would like them to. So the shape this is in is actually quite good. Now, personally, I do estimate that it is going to take a couple of months. Well, a couple is probably an understatement. More like a year or something until it is going to be in a shape where I'm going to say, like, yeah, that's a solid and stable product. But on the other hand side, there is some major stuff they need to do, but a lot of the good stuff is there already. So TFDI have laid a very good foundation with the product as it is right now in the first collector's edition release, and I'm sure that in a couple of months' time, when it is going to come out for the entire public to purchase and to download at that time as well, I'm sure by that time we're going to have a product that is going to be in a state that is going to be enjoyable and fun to fly. Ultimately, it is enjoyable already, even though this first release of the collector's edition still got quite a couple of things that need sorting out. But if I'm totally honest, I've flown betas for a rather long time already in the flight simulation community, so I found my way around working around many of those typical issues that you would see in products like this. And for example, if you look back into the very first flight I did with a plane that I uploaded on my channel, then you will see that I had quite some issues on landing there. Like the auto thrust didn't pull thrust completely into idle, and the auto brake wouldn't trigger. Well, you know, the lesson I'm learning off that is, okay, so I'm no longer going to use the auto thrust for the approach until that thing is fixed. And if I'm totally honest, well, if I'm flying manually, I like to use manual thrust anyway. So for that reason, you know, just adapt to whatever you have available, and that is going to make your life a lot easier. Okay, that much about the current state of the MD-11. Now let's go ahead and go over a little bit of the arrival setup for London Stansted. So let's start with the charts over here. It did sign me out of Navigraph again. Well, that is unfortunate. I did just sign in there like an hour ago or so, but let's give that a second try then. And well, that is done now, so here we go. Airport ICAO EGSS. Alright then, Tosba 1 Alpha, fairly happy with that start. And then we can set up the approach itself. Alright, just gonna take a quick 30-second break, and then I'll be there for that approach setup. Alright, back from the little break, so let's have a look into what we've got for the approach now. Cockpit is going to be at flight level 280, that's the standard restriction air traffic controller is going to give us on this one. So if we have a look at what the system planned, it wants to descend just past Cockpit, but that is going to be fine. We'll just start the descent at some point a little bit before where VNAV would start it, and that's going to be alright. Okay, for the approach then, that's where things are going to get interesting. It is going to be the ILS approach, runway 22. and we've got it right over here. So minimum is going to be 548 or 200 feet of radio altitude. Now in this particular first version of the plane, it seems like I can only change the radio minima. I can't go to barometric, unfortunately, so well, we just gotta live with 200 radio, and that will have to do for us. Okay, ILS frequency is going to be auto-tuned to 110.5, course 222 as well. Barkway VOR on the other hand side is not going to be tuned automatically, so we can tune that manually. Bravo Kilo Yankee. Here we go, that's going to be that one. And then we'll take Bravo Kilo Yankee on number 2 as well. In the real world, what I normally do over here is I take Clacton, CLN, in one of those VORs. And Clacton got an ATIS for Stansted on it. So if you have a look over here into the ATIS part of the chart, you will see you've got 127.18, but that frequency is shared with Münster-Osnabrück Airport in Germany. So when you want to listen to the voice ATIS over here, you will only hear both things overlap, and then it's going to be completely unrecognizable. For that reason, they've got the ATIS on the Clacton VOR as well, frequency 114.55. So you just tune that VOR, and then on the audio control panel down here, on VOR 2, you would activate that one. And then together with the standard ident of the VOR, you would also hear the ATIS playing on that. And when you're done getting the ATIS, then you are just going to select whatever you are going to need again. So in our case, Bravo Kilo Yankee. Selected, and that's it. Alright, the ILS will be auto-tuned, we don't need to bother with that. Let's go to the approach page. Unfortunately, it still doesn't calculate the speeds up there, but what we can do already, we can decide on the flap setting for the landing. We can choose between 35 and 50. You can see a little bit of a difference in the approach speed down there, like 2 or 3 knots, so not worth even bothering with. We're going to do flap 35 landing. I do believe the plane lands a little bit nicer when we do that. Okay, so that's pretty much that part of the setup complete. Now what we could do is we could just go to Cockpit and insert a level 280 restriction in here. However, in the real world at this point we normally get a direct once we're handed over to London control, which would happen around about now. You would either get a direct towards Tosba or direct to Idisi. Now in our case, let's go ahead and proceed towards Idisi, like that. And top of the sentence before that, Idisi 180, Lapra 120, Abbott level 80, we're going to take that out, okay? So, that level 80 at Abbott, I basically always remove that from the plan, because realistically, at Abbott you want to be in something like 4,000 or so. Normally I just let the airplane calculate it, however, looking down here, flight level 100 at Abbott is definitely too high, because the center fix is only like 10 miles behind in 2,500. So let's remove that, and I'm just going to put a 4,000 restriction at Abbott in. That should give us a little bit of a conservative descent profile. Alright, so that's done. Finally, let's have a look at exactly how Stansted looks like. Because normally we try to take the first exit, however today we are probably going to take the second one, because we're a heavy aircraft anyway, so that means we got a little bit more space behind our plane for others to use. So landing 2-2, and then in the 7-3 we'd vacate November Romeo over here. We're probably going to vacate Lima Romeo, so second to the left today. So flaps 30, and then I am going to go for auto brakes medium, and that should provide us with sufficient margin for our landing. Okay, that's our preparations completed, so we can start with our approach briefing. Threats for the arrival, well, it's London, so it's going to be a rather busy airspace. How are we going to mitigate against that? Well, we make sure that we've basically finished all our procedures by the time we initiate the descent, which is exactly what we're doing right now. And then we're going to carefully listen out to the frequency. We'll try to minimize the distraction on the arrival, and that's pretty much it. Apart from that, they do use rather tight separation Stansted, so whenever we get a speed restriction from air traffic control, we've got to be sure that we are abiding with that restriction fairly early. Also, since we are rather light today, we are approaching much slower than MD-11s usually would, so that is something that we could also tell Stansted Director when they plan the next aircraft behind us. Okay, I do believe that's it for the threats we're seeing for this arrival. So, quick look into our plan to show you what we're about to do. Decrease that range a little bit. And here we are. So, Tospa 1 Alpha arrival from Idisi, level 180, Lepra, level 120 and 250 knots. And then on to Abbott, restrictions removed in there, and that leads us towards the final, where we've got the center fix in here. And just looking at that next page, the CF is, yeah, 10 miles out from the runway. Showing 9 over here, I'm pretty sure it's 9 decimal something. CF usually means 10 miles, and then you've got FF, which is the final approach fix, wherever that is published. Alright, so that is that part. Missed approach, unfortunately, is not in the FMS, so if we have to go around, we are going to fly manual missed approach, and that is basically on the localizer to 3.1 mile from ISX, and that's a right-hand turn established on the radial 171 Immodo Barkway. Be level by 80 Barkway at an altitude of 3,000 feet for the missed approach, and max 185 knots for the initial turn. Okay, minimum is a 548 Barrow. However, we only got it available in radio at the moment, as we can't change the minimum selector around. Okay, and that's pretty much it. We're going to vacate the runway on the second high-speed exit, then off to the left, and let's see if I can find the parking chart. Here it is. So we're parking apron Alpha today. That means we're vacating over here, straight via Lima into Juliet, and then via Juliet onto Alpha, and then to the right, so over here. We've got a parking stand chart here as well, so over here in front of the cargo center on some of these stands. Any questions on the approach briefing? No? Very good. In the real world, we would normally get a clearance to descend flight level 220, be level 15 before Idisi. Let's see if we can insert that in the flight plan. Idisi / -15, does it accept something like that? No, it doesn't, okay. Well, in that case, Idisi 180 is good as well. So let's request descent. We'll go down 180, level by Idisi, and the airplane is going to start the descent automatically by the time we pass our top of descent, as that is what profile mode is going to do. Okay, cool. So, as we're about to start the descent, the fasten seatbelt signs can go on, and then we can take out the descent checklist down to altimeters, please. Landing data, checked and set, windshield anti-ice off, DH MDA 200 feet set, seatbelts on, descent approach checklist complete down to altimeters. And from there we're going to resume it once we are down at the level of well, basically in the approach. Right, quick look outside. In the real world, when you're flying this particular route over the English Channel over here, it's really impressive to see all the wind parks that are out here, and that is something that I'm kind of hoping to see. Now there's a freighter, or a cargo ship. Here we can still see it. And here's a couple of wind parks as well, nice. I've got the Aerosoft North Sea add-on installed at the moment, so there should be a lot of stuff out there on the English Channel. Indeed, lurking through the clouds, you can see the wind parks down there, and in real life they are really, really prominent. So, really interesting to see just how many wind power turbines there are when you're flying over this area. It is just really cool. And really incredible as well. It's like 15% of the entire North Sea that's covered with wind parks by now. So 15% of the North Sea, just imagine that, 15% of an ocean is being used for generating power at the moment. That's some impressive numbers if you ask me. And yeah, in case you're wondering what kind of stuff we are talking about on flights, well, here you got some perfect examples of the kind of stuff that we are wondering and that we are talking about on our flights. Sometimes even on a short one like this, you know, once you're done with your briefing, you are basically, for the first time during that entire flight, for the first half an hour that we are airborne now, this is about the time when we finally get a little bit of time to start relaxing. And then they tell you, contact London Center frequency blah blah, the first one in the descent, and at that point you know, like, okay, your break is over, it's time to start working again. Well, that's just how it works, unfortunately, on short haul, and that's one of the reasons why I went flying long haul now. It is an easier life. Like on short haul, there's always something happening. You're doing 4 sectors a day. You are flying into the busiest places like Mallorca in summer, Stansted all year round, or the entire London TMA all year round, actually. And at some point I was just like, whoa, it's been nice doing that. Give me something where we are over the ocean for 8 hours at a time. That's gonna make my life much easier. And indeed, where in the past I used to fly 4 sectors every day for 5 days in a row, doing 20 sectors, like 25 flight hours or so. Nowadays, I'm also away for 4 days, or 5 days, but you do 1 flight over, 10 hours, 1 flight back, 10 hours, you're back home, you did almost the same amount of flight hours, but in the meantime you spend 3 days lying at the beach, or at least 1 or 2 days lying at the beach, or doing interesting tours and stuff like that. And then you get back, you are much more relaxed, it's been a much easier job. And that's my personal reason for going long haul. Now, talking about going long haul, the MD-11 certainly is a long haul aircraft as well. And operators like KLM, like Swiss, like Lufthansa Cargo, to name a couple European ones. Then obviously in the US the plane was less popular with passenger carriers, even though American had some, but they cancelled the orders later on. The same for Singapore Airlines. They cancelled their MD-11 orders in the favor of A340s, and then later on Boeing bought the Singapore A340s to get them rid of those aircraft and give them the 777 instead. That was quite an amazing story. Anyway, there's plenty of operators whom you can fly for in the MD-11 over here. You just have to go back in time a little bit, but if you're just thinking about doing flights, then if you want to do rather short flights, go for the UPS MD-11s. If you want to do rather long flights, go for FedEx. Just head over to Flight Radar 24 and have a look at the data and airlines tab, and in there have a look at the fleets of UPS and of FedEx. Go for the MD-11, just select some registrations, and you will immediately notice that UPS is doing a lot of short flights with their wide-body freighters, while FedEx is doing a lot of long flights, all the way up to 11.5 hours. So that's just some ideas. Now, if you're looking to fly transatlantic, KLM is your way to go. They did a lot of flights to the Caribbean, but also some United States flights, and likewise did Swiss. Alright, Swiss is a very good thing coming up, because obviously I'm sure you are aware of the accident of the Swiss Flight 111, which was an MD-11 that crashed into the ocean just shy of Halifax after a fire broke out in the cockpit. Now, that is something that we talked a lot about during my Airbus A330 type rating, and talking about flying long haul and not being able to land at the nearest airport and stuff like that. Now, it turns out that in the A330 cockpit there is not a single bus in there that has more than 28 volts. In the MD-11, you've got a lot of 115 volt buses straight in the cockpit. Like, for example, looking at the dimmers of the lights, that is a very good example. In the MD-11, the lights of the panel are always getting 115 volts. And then you've got some small... and then in the light switches, you basically got a small capacitor that when you turn it up or down, or rather when you turn it down, so when you dim the lights, it reduces the voltage straight next to the switch. But obviously, as you can imagine, if you dim those lights and if the voltage gets reduced, that is going to produce heat. And that heat is a possible source for a fire in the MD-11 cockpit. And that was one of the design flaws in the MD-11 that was the reason why there were a lot of incidents with the airplane where smoke occurred in the cockpit. Compared to that, in the Airbus A330, A340 fleet, there have been very few instances, and most of them were PEDs catching fire in the cockpit, rather than anything that the airplane actually caused itself. Back in the day when they had the old CRT screens, however, those CRT screens and the cathode ray tubes in them, those sometimes burned through and caused some temporary smoke coming from the instruments. And you basically knew, alright, turn off the respective screen and it's gonna stop again. And, well, then the screen was gone, but at least the thing started working. Or at least the thing didn't really catch fire or spread the fire. So, that's one of those things coming with CRT screens, unfortunately, it seems. Again, the MD-11 has a design that's a little bit questionable there in terms of why would you put a high voltage into the cockpit. But it happened, and, well, apparently the Swiss crash was not caused by that, but it did cause a couple of smoke events with the MD-11 over the time. So, 9 miles to run towards Iddersea. We gotta lose 2,500 feet, so that looks to me like we are pretty much on track for the descent. Also, our speed has run up all the way to 330 knots. Now, in a Stansted, you would often get speeds like that, so 330 knots is a lot, but then again, have a look at the MD-11 and the maximum speed it can fly at 360. That's quite fast. The 737, for example, 340. The A330 just 330 knots. So at 330 target speed, we are definitely going quite quick in the MD-11. But in the 7.3, at my old airline, we would normally descend at 245 knots. Now, London barely let us do that. Usually we got a restriction like 280 or 300 knots or something the likes, so that they could fit us into the traffic flow. Right, let's continue our descent. Next up, we're looking at 12,000 feet near Lapra. Here we are. And look at that. That's a lot of objects down there on the ocean. Coming back to what I said earlier. A lot of large cargo vessels parking down here or anchoring down here, waiting to get either permission to join the English Channel and make their way for London, or what you saw a lot of times on vessels down here as well is that you had oil tankers who have been uploading some oil in the UK, and then they just drive outside of UK territorial waters, anchor there and wait for the oil prices to rise, then they go back to the country and sell the oil again. That was actually something that you saw quite a bit, and for that reason you had a lot of tankers actually anchoring in the English Channel, just shy of British territorial waters. I wouldn't be surprised if this distance over here is pretty much exactly, what's that, 6 miles or so, where the territorial waters begin. I keep forgetting that number, but you get where I'm going with that. Okay, we are getting a little bit quick right now. I'm going to use a little speed brake to get us rid of that. So that's like 1/3 of speed brake only right now. You can see how much of an effect that has already. The MD-11 really got a very, very strong speed brake. Okay then, direct abort. That is what we would normally get once the path is clear. But we would have to maintain our previous rate of descent there. So we're looking at about 1800 feet a minute on the vertical speed. Like that. Because they still want us to pass 120 beam Lapra. Right now in the TFDI the beam points don't work yet. That's something that is going to be added with a later edition of the airplane. So obviously it would have been very beneficial to have a beam point over here where we could define the 1-2000 restriction in beam Lapra. Okay, looking good. Then let's descend at 10,000, and this time we are going to do it in open descent. So that's idle 10,000, because I'm kind of getting sick of flying too fast and having to consider using the speed brakes here. So something like that should be working quite well. In any case, let's turn the altitude a little bit further down, descending flight level 80, because I want to see how well the airplane is going to handle the speed reduction at 10,000 feet. So this is looking good right now. Distance to go, let's see, that's 20, 30, and from Abbott it's like another 15 miles or so. We're looking at 35 to 40 miles at the moment, passing 13,000, so I would say that we should be okay. Maybe a little bit on the high side, but I think overall we are okay. So the weather has really improved. Thinking back to Cologne, where we actually started in the rain today, looking out here to England, and it's calf okay. Didn't expect that. Absolutely didn't expect that. That's some really good weather. So, man, look at that. 3,700 feet a minute. That is a huge rate of descent there. Okay, target speed is reducing. 245 is a new target. We see the drag illuminate there, but I'm just not going to do that quite yet. Instead, I want to see how the airplane is going to perform during the deceleration maneuver now. Let's see, 400 feet a minute, so we got like 30 seconds until we reach 10,000. The trend factor there is 10 seconds, so that is about 30 seconds. So if everything goes the way I'm expecting it to go, then we are going to reach the 245 knots just about when passing 10,000. That would be quite incredible. So let's see what's going to happen. That's 100 feet to run and 15 knots to lose. Okay, 10,253 knots. That is a pretty good deceleration. That's a pretty good deceleration indeed. Okay then. Lights are coming on. Logo light can stay off now since it's definitely bright enough outside. And then let's go ahead and continue our descent to 4,000 feet. Here we go, and change the local QNH as well, which is 1002. Okay, cool. Then we can continue the descent and approach checklist. Altimeters 1002 set cross-checked. Hydraulic panel, auto, exterior lights on. Descent and approach checklists complete. Okay, that was quite good so far. So let's go ahead and see how the airplane is going to behave in manual flight.
Autopilot.
And we're going to do the rest of the thing ourselves. So for now, I'm just not touching anything. No hands on the controls. I just want to see how stable the airplane ultimately is. The MD-11's LSAS system, there is a separate video on that, by the way, from TFDI directly, so I can absolutely recommend you check that out if you want to learn more about the LSAS. And I can absolutely recommend you to do that, because it is one of those specialties of the MD-11 as an airplane, so definitely worth checking out. The LSAS is doing a good job, it seems. Perfectly bang on as the autopilot gave it to us. It does want a very slight right-hand turn. I'm wondering if I should give it that, or if that would just destabilize the entire thing, but let's play a little bit with it, and let's just give it its right-hand turn. So I'm using aileron only now. Let's see what's going to happen. If we make a little bit more of a right turn. Okay, that's 10 degrees bank. And it's looking quite good. Even though it does start losing a little bit of speed there. But overall, it is doing quite a good job. Even though that was quite responsive, I have to say. Well, it's alright, it's alright. Okay, we got like 12 miles to run to the center fix, 3,000 at the center fix, so we got to lose, well, we need 6 miles to lose the altitude, another 5 to lose the speed, so that's 11 miles, so we're a little bit low right now. Okay, let's experiment with it. Auto thrust off. And let's put on a little bit of speed. Let's see if we can fly a proper minus 500 feet a minute. And descend down to 3,000. Like so. I'm kind of trying to put those 4,000 feet in the computer here, but it just remains at hold 4,000 there. Not exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, so let's go present heading, and from that we're going to intercept the ILS. That localizer mode does engage a little bit early, if you ask me. Like, why should we go left now? We are still like 5 miles from the extended center line. Okay, maintaining 3,000. Let's reduce our thrust. Let's see how well we can maintain our our altitude during manual flight. Okay, speed target back towards 220 at first. Okay, tell you what, just keep that heading for now. Okay, so let's extend. Let's see how that's gonna feel. And speed back 180. Very slight climb, not supposed to do that. Okay, dial of flap selected 15 degrees. Here we go. But I have to say it's quite easy to maintain altitude rather accurately with this. Very small control inputs are the key to everything here. Okay, flap 15. For some reason it always goes to 14, but that's gonna work for me as well.
2,500.
Checked. Okay, then a little bit of thrust to maintain those 180 knots. Looking good. Okay, approach mode once more. Localizer captured. This time it should be real. Oh, losing some speed that we should absolutely not lose there. Localizer alive. Speed is back under control. Maintain 3000. It's a strange feeling having those thrust levers in hand, but then noticing that it's only 3 thrust levers. That feels really strange for my hands. It has to be like either 2 or 4 of them, but not 3. Okay, glide slope capture, go around altitude 3000 is set. Then we can go idle thrust. And down we go. Yeah, that was wrong. Here we go, back in localizer. And run my heading 222 set. Alright, FMS speed. Gear down. Flaps 28. And over here you really get to feel that weight of the airplane. You can see it really takes a long time to decelerate. For that reason we got to start early enough configuring our plane for the landing. Okay, flaps 35. And that's our final setting. Okay, spoilers armed, auto brakes are selected, very good. Before landing checklist. Landing gear and lights, down, 4 green, spoilers armed, auto brake, medium. Ooh, what's it doing now? That's interesting. Look at that, my control column is completely steady. Whoa. Man, what's it doing? I think we're stalling.
500, 400.
Okay. Well, this is obviously no longer realistic now. This would absolutely have been a go-around. But I just want to see what I can get my airplane into, if I can recreate that situation now. Look at the trim, we're almost at the aft limit. So let's see if we can kind of get that under control again.
500.
At 160 knots, the airplane is flying fine. Let's go to idle, see if we can reduce that thrust again. This is the beta tester in me. Oh, look at that, at 158, that's where we enter the problems. Okay, now we need a lot of thrust. Now we need a lot of thrust.
100.
Okay. Well, tell you what. Go around. Flaps. Okay, positive climb. Gear up. Where is that toga button in here? I think it's on the back side of the thrust levers. Can't hit that right now, so I'll just have to fly that go around entirely manually. That's a little unfortunate. Okay, flaps 15. Tell you what, flaps retract. And slats retract. Okay, let's pull some of that thrust off already. Okay, so straight ahead 3.1 India Sierra X-ray, then a right turn to Barkway. but we don't seem to receive Barkway. And I have tuned that. Okay, tell you what, we are going to do a visual approach. So, out to the left. Slats extend. Let's go flight director. Can we switch that off? Hello, flight director off, please. Looks like I need to hold that switch when I release it. I straight away get a flight director again. Okay, that's annoying. Well, flaps 15. Poor people in that village down there, they can't be happy with us doing this. But I did look outside already, it's mostly farmlands that we're flying over. There is our airport. Okay, roughly looking for heading 040.
2500.
Checked. Okay, 180 knots is good. Let's not get any slower than that. While also maintaining 3000. What's the fuel situation like? 32,600 pounds. Perfect. So plenty of fuel on board. Alright, so maybe a problem with the lift of flaps 35. Tell you what, we're going to do the second approach with a flap 50 landing. Maybe that is going to give us a better result. Okay, we wanted to maintain 180. So let's do that. Here we go. Back at 180, 3,000 feet. Looking good. Right, that's our runway down there. So we're going to fly the outbound for roughly a minute before we start our base turn. Okay, we are almost abeam. Let's see if I can get that timer to work. Looks to me like we can't. Well, we are abeam now, and that is 97.44. So 98.44 is when we're going to start our final turn. So ultimately, we are lucky that we've got the good weather over here. I really don't know what that was on the final there. It looked like something went wrong in the LSAS maybe. Not 100% sure. Certainly something in the fly-by-wire of the MD-11 malfunctioned down there. And obviously now it really struck us that we didn't have any missed approach guidance. Okay, 10 more seconds. Let's go gear down. Flaps 28. 3, 2, 1, turn. Okay.
2500.
Terrain noted. Start on the base turn. Looking to fly it straight into the glide slope now. Speed is looking good. There's our airport. And here's our glide slope. Ooh, and the airplane is reacting again. So flaps 30, 5, and flaps 50. Let's see if that's gonna make a difference. So I'm letting go of the controls now. That's looking good. Let's see if we can slowly reduce our speed. Maybe pitch up a little bit more to get back towards the glide. But it immediately reduces pitch again. I think I know why it is. I think it's because of the PLI up here. Look at that. When we enter the PLI, that's where it aggressively pushes the nose down. But the PLI might just about be too low. See that? It really forces me under the glide and I can't do anything about it. Okay, let's start turning final. I just gotta fly it as close to the PLI as possible without entering it. Oh man. This is not good. This is really not good.
1,000.
Checked. But why is the PLI that low? It did do that on my previous flights. I mean, obviously we're in a situation where we should be going around once again. But I'm tempted to see if I can somehow get it in now. Because it would be a pity if we couldn't land this. And all the time it pushes us straight down to 1,000 feet a minute.
500.
Man. Come on,
400.
aircraft. No, we need
Approaching
power.
minimum.
We need power.
Minimum. 200.
Look at where we need the speed in order for this to fly. At 180 knots it kinda works, but not how it's supposed to be. Okay, where's that airport? I just want to get that plane in now. I don't care about all the rest. I just want to get it landing.
400. 400.
Yes, you said that already. Okay, we can maintain altitude at 160 knots now. So I'm just going to make use of that. I'll just fly it down. I have a feeling we're not going to get a decent approach out of this anymore. So
Approaching minimum. 300.
yeah, here comes the runway. That looks about fine. So fly slope is coming alive.
Minimum.
Let's start pitching down a bit.
200.
We are much too
Minimum.
fast, obviously. Continue. Oh, look at that. The PLI is coming active again. Wouldn't be surprised if that automatics are going to crash us into the runway now. But let's see.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Okay, we're down. Not the prettiest landing, not at all. Auto brake disarm, why is that? Okay, manual brakes. What is auto thrust doing? It's preventing me from reducing my power. Man, auto thrust should be off. Why can't I use reverse? Look at that. My thrust levers are basically stuck where they are. And this is definitely not my hardware thrust levers. Now they're coming down. I really don't know what that was. Landing this plane is a little bit strange. A little bit very strange. Okay, but here we are. Okay, well, that was an interesting approach. Not to say completely illegal one, but I suppose the last one we just flew just fell under the captain's emergency authority. As in, just let me get the plane down. Really no idea what happened there. And why the plane got so itchy when we reduced the speed below 160. So that's kind of what I told you earlier in the stream, that first betas can spoil your flights. And looks like this one has not been spared from it either. Okay, well, here we are. So I do suppose we are going to continue doing our stuff here and bring that plane to the gate. So flaps up, spoilers retracted, transponder off, auto brake off. Lights off, APU start. Okay, then next to the right, onto Juliet. And this is full right tiller at the moment. Something is acting up. Let's use a little bit of thrust on the left side to get around that corner. Here we go. Definitely not the prettiest, but better than nothing, I suppose. Here we go. Okay, clear right side, clear left side. Hangar 10, that's the Ryanair hangar. And right next to it is the Ryanair training center, or the Ryanair Stansted training center, I should say. They've got several in Dublin and Bergamo and over here. Okay, here we are. So, let's go ahead and do the after landing checklist. Spoilers, retracted, flap slats, up retracted, weather radar and transponder, off standby, auto brake, off step trim. Well, let's bring that 3 units. Then exterior lights are set, anti-ice off, APU on, and that's the after landing checklist. Pretty much complete as soon as the step trim reaches 3 units. Alright, not the prettiest of all landings, but at least we got there. Honestly, in the condition that the airplane was on that approach, I would say that is all we can ask for. That is pretty fair. Now, welcome to the job of a test pilot, my friends. That's just how these things go. Okay. I'm wondering though if we should have gotten any pull-up warnings or glide slope warnings or anything the likes. Is GPWS implemented at this point? Probably not, I suppose. Otherwise, I'm fairly sure that approach should have given us plenty of GPWS warnings. Right, that's the FedEx apron over here. In case you are flying here with FedEx, that's where you want to go. And as UPS, we're gonna go one further. So, where's our APU? Hasn't done anything. Okay, try that once more. APU start. Okay, next to the right is where we are going to park as UPS. Clear right side, clear left side. Okay, taxi light off, turn off lights off, and we're going to take that gate over there. Number 7. Here we go. Okay. Getting there, a little bit thrust needed. That's all. Engine 2 cutoff. Saving the last couple of liters of fuel there. Well, probably rather milliliters than liters. But that's fine. And here we go. Now going all the way forward. It's a large aeroplane, so we lose sight of the lines rather early, but you can somewhat see it when looking out to the side over there. Still got to go quite a bit further. Also remember the nose wheel is quite far behind us. So here we can roughly stop, I'd say. Okay, the parking brake is set. Then let's go ahead and do the parking checks. So, hydraulic panel is in auto, electrical, auto, anti-ice, auto, engines. Well, APU power is on, engines off. Okay, seatbelts on, off, exterior lights. We'll wait until the engines are below 20% N2, which they are now. Beacon off, emergency power selector off. IRS also going off, and status page is checked. Okay, then let's do the shutdown checklist, please. Or the parking checklist, I should say. Anti-ice off, hydraulic panel auto, fuel switches off, seat belts off, fuel panel auto, emergency power off, exterior lights set as needed. Parking brake set, IRS off, and SD status reviewed. Parking checklist complete. Alright, here we are. That was certainly one of the more interesting flights, I would call it. Definitely an interesting one, and I'm looking forward to read what you guys think about that approach. Do let me know if you would have done things different, or if you would have continued like I did. Certainly, I found it the better option to continue, but I'm looking forward to read your take on it. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like on YouTube as well, as it does help with the algorithms, and don't forget to subscribe for more. That's going to be me signing off. Thank you very much for watching, and then I see you all again on the next one.